welcome back. And of course, as was mentioned earlier in the show, March is a very important month, actually for many people, because it's celebrated as Women's Month, but also at the same time, and I don't think it's too much of a coincidence, as a Child Stimulation Month. So we're going to be talking about the importance of early childhood education, but also the different activities that are going to be held in celebrating this particular month. Joining us for this conversation, we're joined by Nadira Ross, Acting Manager of the Early Childhood Development Center. We're joined by Leroy Green, the Expressive Arts Curriculum Coordinator. We're joined by Lorleen Gamboa, Literacy Officer. Good morning and welcome.
Good morning. Thank you.
I want to start off, of course, touching on the main issue here, which is early childhood development. And Nadira, I'll give you a chance to jump right in on that. For a while, we knew the challenge was having people understand that babies needed an introduction into the education sector. How are we on that front, and why is it important?
Like you said, the whole fact of introducing the child into the educational system is very, very important. And we have parents who, okay, my baby is too young to start school, but having them start, it gives the child a platform as to grow and as to be the person that they can be. Like you mentioned earlier, the month is Child Stimulation Month. In the entire month, as you will hear from Mr. Green and Ms. Gamboa, activities that we're going to do in the month to stimulate, to capture that the whole essence of why it is important and what all we can do to foster that growth for the children will be highlighted throughout the month of March.
Talking about specifically the development of children and what having any kind of stimulation does for them. Let's talk about that. What are the benefits of getting your child involved in early childhood education?
I always say this, there is a return that you get. The child who goes to preschool, the child who does not go to preschool, not necessarily saying that the child who does not go to preschool will not become someone or not become successful, but the whole fact of the return that you get, the child that goes to preschool more than likely will be very successful in life. It allows the children to say, okay, well, I'm a part of all of this. The parents can say, okay, I know my child is a part and I have to play that intricate role in all of this. I always say it's a triangle. The parent, the child, and the teacher. Without three persons playing that important role, the development of the child will go nowhere. We know that there are activities that you can do at home to stimulate, simple activities. We don't have to go to the store and buy the expensive toys to stimulate your child. Simple things that you have at home that you can use it. Dishes, rags, all of that. You're looking at me like, okay, how can you use dishes and rags to stimulate? But it's what the activities that you do, that you will do with the child to engage. Taking the rag and dangling the rag in front of a 6-month child to say, okay, am I following? Am I seeing? You know, simple activities that you could do that fosters that whole stimulation and that helps with the development of the child is very important in that particular stage in life.
And on a broader scale, why do we need to stimulate children that young?
Why do we need to stimulate them that young? Because as we know, preschool isn't mandatory. And if we don't have some form of stimulation, then the child then goes to school without that platform. So if you then help in stimulating the child then knows, okay, when I go to school, there are certain things that I already bring to the table. I can say thank you when I'm given something. I can smile. I can interact. You know, so it's just all of that helps a child to get into the whole world of education.
Now, Leroy, looking at the curriculum, and we know especially with preschools, there we expect art. You know, you expect a Mother's Day gift, an Easter something, and whatnot. But of course, it's deeper than just having the children use glue and glitters. How do you work to ensure that the curriculum is something that is child-friendly and age-appropriate, but also not just, you know, here's some stuff and do what you want?
First of all, the expressive arts is not just art. The expressive arts has in drama, dance, music, art, and creative writing, though the young children don't write. But getting them involved in the expressive arts, it does a lot for them, because getting the child involved in drama, in fact, all the arts, I should say, fosters their social skills, because they have to work with one another. They learn the attributes of tolerance, acceptance, cooperation, all of that, which sets the foundation for life. Also, when you look at things like drama, it helps them when they go on to language arts. Because a lot of people do not realize that the very same skills that are employed in reading and understanding a story are the very same skills employed in all the elements of drama. Because unless you take this piece of paper with this script and use your voice, your face, and your body to bring it to life, it's just words written on a paper. So it develops their language ability. In art, it's that motor skills that is being developed. When they have to use their hands, they have to practice how to cut with their scissors and that kind of thing. And surprisingly, we find that big people sometimes cannot manipulate a pair of scissors. And this is something that is done in the preschool under the teacher's guidance. Or you find an adult can't rule a straight line with a ruler and a pencil. This tells us that more and more than likely they did not have that advantage of preschool education. So these are some of the things that early childhood education does. It also teaches the child to listen, because a lot of preschool instruction is done through storytelling. And if you notice, I did not say story reading, I said storytelling.
I'm going to get to that. I have that in my mind, because Lurleen is going to answer. Go ahead, yeah.
Okay. Because there is a difference, and a lot of people don't realize there's a difference. When we do our workshops with preschool teachers, in fact, all the teachers that we do it with, we push the idea of storytelling rather than story reading for several reasons. The story reading, you go ahead, bury in a book. You don't even see what is going on with the little children that you're supposed to be reading to. While with storytelling now, you memorize that story and you deliver it in a dynamic fashion rather than an old, boring monotone. Because 3- and 4-year-olds, their attention span is short. And if you got up there and you just, I'm an adult. And if that's the way you talk, I'm not listening to you. So what do you imagine about a 3- and 4-year-old? So the expressive arts does have a big part in developing. As a matter of fact, most of the methods, pardon me if I'm wrong, used in the preschool are elements of the expressive arts. And that's why we take it up. We do give the teachers in preschools workshops every single year. And it's not workshops like some people think just for the Festival of Arts. It's not. It is workshops for them to use as a part of the teaching strategies in the curriculum.
Now, let's bring it over to Lurleen, because you made the distinction, thank you, in terms of there is a difference between storytelling and story reading. I want to talk to you a bit about encouraging young children at preschool. There's this new sense of urgency that you can get babies to learn to read now, and all these things that you can purchase and drill them, and flashcards. Is that what we're aiming towards?
Most definitely. And just before I answer that question, one of the things we try to sell, because a lot of times people would ask, why have an entire month and label it as Child Stimulation Month? Our comeback most of the time would be, as adults, you're invited to a press conference or you're going to school, you tend to look at the individuals who will actually give the press conference, and you will be like, I don't want to be with her because she's boring. I don't want to be with this one because, and we're adults. So if we are drawn towards people who will stimulate us, who will interest us, then imagine the babies that we have. So that's one of the main arguments that we tend to use when we look at why stimulate a child. And in regards to 3-year-olds, 4-year-olds, 5-year-olds being able to read and being able to learn the skill of reading at an early age, that is most definitely true. And the PSAs that I brought, hopefully we're going to see one, is I spoke with Dr. Navarrete, and he actually explained to us that from inside the womb, if a child is being read to, being talked to on a daily basis, how that actually stimulates and creates movement within the mother's womb. So from that early stage, we have that sensitivity going on. And another PSA, what I did with the PSAs was basically put them in steps. So we looked at what is the ministry saying, we looked at a doctor, we actually showed classroom settings, and then we actually showed a 4-year-old child actually reading. So those are some of the things that we look at. Most naturally, as Ms. Ross and both Mr. Green alluded to, that if they're stimulated from an early age, it can be done. Just that we need to look at the type of stimulation, because we don't want to overwork their brain.
And that's what I was asking in terms of you know, having your baby try to read, or first couple of words, and then moving into trying to read. What is appropriate? What is the type of development or stimulation that we're looking at? We can start off, let's say, at 2 years old.
If you're thinking about it in terms of books and so forth, the recommendation that you would use would be large, colorful pictures for a 2-year-old. And like Mr. Green rightly said, you don't want to be just reading and reading.
So I'm not just going to say, look at this white paper.
No.
It has black.
No, because they want to be able to see all that facial expression when somebody is saying jump, and you go like jump, or hide and you go like hide. You want expression in that hide. And then a lot of times we reach certain age and we wonder, why is it that they're turned off, or we don't have people who are comfortable speaking to each other? It's because the foundation wasn't laid from an early age. Because a lot of times when you say it's time to stand up and do a speech, a lot of our students right now are just closing in. And the main reason for that is when you look at the oral language development, that is the foundation. And when that is weak, the rest of the house, I like to consider it a house, just keeps crumbling down, because the oral language is your secure base. And by oral language, I simply mean a lot of talking. Talk to your children. Don't tell them, be quiet, I'm doing this right now. No, allow them to ask questions. That is very essential. And that
are we supposed to entertain all the whys?
Yes, most naturally. Every single
Spoken
one.
from a non-parent, right?
Every single one. And you'll be appalled to know that.
And because I said so is not a valid answer.
No.
And why?
Yes.
So you have to encourage the whys. You have to encourage them to ask questions, like like Lurleen said. When you're reading, you can't just have the book and just being. The child will then, okay, if the approach is to mimic me, will I mimic? I will give back what I'm taught, or what I see, what I learn. And if you're there reading in this very boring way, then no expression, the child then reads that exact same way. And the babies, when you read to a baby, reading with expression, you can see that child is grasping your expression, because the child flinch or the child smiles or something. So it all starts from what you do and how you do it.
In terms of that, stimulating the child, so I think what teachers have to keep in mind, and even parents, to stimulate the child, if we use stories and that kind of thing, use stories with characters, places, animals, fruits, that kind of thing that the child can identify with. Too often you go into schools and the teacher might be reading something about snow-capped mountains and so on. How many 2 and 3 year olds?
Or picking cherries when we could go pick mangoes.
You have guava, you have sapra, you have, and that's this year in particular going around to the districts. That's what I'm pushing. I'm pushing teachers to write their own stories for children. In fact, I brought a few, and I've even carried it so far. Like we were up in Corazon, and the sample of the story that I used was set in a San Pablo village. The child was named Papito. They were eating their tortilla with fried beans and whatnot. Change it according to the place where the child goes up, so that as soon as the child hears that story, you could say, can relate to it.
Yeah.
And doing that is very vital, especially when you're teaching a skill in language, because you want them to be able to relate to the story, to understand the skill, and then after that you could bring in the foreign identity to them. But when you start with something completely strange to them, it's harder for them to understand the skill. So we are going with, start with what they're familiar with and then branch out from there on. And another thing that Mr. Green mentioned, and I smile because a lot of times when we have our babies and they're scratching all over the wall, we're like, no, don't do that. Scratching is the first form of writing, so it's okay. No, as
hopefully
parents,
not on the walls. Exactly. I don't know how many parents are buying into that right
as
now.
parents, what we encourage is give them the little, you don't want to give them a typing sheet because they're small. So you need like a huge sharp paper so that they can more or less keep the scratching, but it's the first form of writing. So we're encouraging parents, don't stop them from scratching, but just guide them into what they're supposed to scratch on.
I have a friend, I do have to admit, she's learned after her first child that she just designated a space on the wall, painted chalkboard paint, and he can scratch all he wants after that. And you can erase and start over. But
following up on what Ms. Ross said about mimicking, very important, because the young child learns by mimicking.
Okay.
And this is where the expression in drama and so on comes in, because if you're reading a story and you stand up there and you, once upon a time there was a little boy named Papito. He lived in San Pablo. The child will not listen. You know, no, there's no change. A boy is nothing. But if you come out and you, once upon a time in the village of San, they're immediately going to grasp their attention. And they listen, that's how they learn words. That's why it's very important for both parents and teachers to pay attention to things like articulation and that pronunciation, that kind of thing. Very sad to say, though, a lot of people in Belize don't pay attention to that, because we hear words like A-N-D pronounced as an, words G-O-I-N-G pronounced as going, and we wonder why the child grows up saying that, because they heard it. So they mimic a lot.
Very important in all of this, and I don't want to miss the opportunity, even though it isn't the main focus, is the Festival of Arts, and how that is one of the areas where children are allowed to showcase their own development. So it's not just being in a cute costume on stage. What is the benefit of having children involved in this type of stage performance?
The costume part actually is the least that we look at.
And that's all. I mean, that's one of the heavy emphasis. But really, what does it mean that these young children? I'm floored when I see children going up and doing an entire poem. One more because of the public speaking aspect, and so many adults are mortified of public speaking. But what does it mean?
What does it mean? It simply means, okay, I can showcase my talent. I know that in doing this, if I was a child that was introverted, having my teacher formulate a setting where I can showcase, then I can be more comfortable doing that. And like Mr. Green said, it's not only getting up there and doing, it's you're learning some structure at the same time, and that transitions into primary school. I mean, I'm here with Mr. Green and Lurleen, and if we would go, if there was a thing to go back in time, I could tell you when they were at the preschool age, they were very vocal and they were very
expressive.
Very expressive.
How many of us went through Festival of Arts from babies?
You know,
and I know William is the same.
It allows the child to be me. And you have to structure that in a way. Going back to the preschool system, most people say, I don't want to send my child to preschool because all they do there is play. But we're missing the point. It's structured play. It's play that is structured in such a way that the child learns through play. The child will know, okay, I am doing this, but I'm doing it in fun. And in doing something through fun, it sticks, and you learn better when you're doing something. As an adult, if you want me to do something and there's nothing in there that excites me or interests me, then it flies right over my head. Yes. So it's something that the children learn from that tender age, to be expressive, to shine, to know, okay, I can and I will do it.
So being involved in a festival of arts has a lot of benefits. One, it builds up their artistic potential, whichever field it's in, because the Festival of Arts is not just about the performing arts.
Yeah.
It's also about the visual arts and arts and craft. We're really pushing that heavily this year, and while the performing arts section will be at the Bliss, the visual arts section will be mounted at St. Mary's Parish Hall. And so far, quite a lot of schools are saying they'll be putting in this. So please make sure Dwayne or your crew visit St. Mary's Hall, because he comes every year. The Festival of Arts also allows the child to develop his language ability, his social skills, learn from each other, because it's not just, you're not closeted in one school, you're seeing what other children are doing and learning from them, exchange of ideas. It builds up the child's self-esteem, because if you will be there in the evening time, especially the babies, those 3 and 4 year olds, the first person they look for when that curtain opens is mommy and daddy. You have them interrupting performances to hello mommy, and we don't mind that, because that's them, right?
And at that level is usually judged too heavily.
Next year, it's not judged up to this year, but next year there will be a change where it will be adjudicated, so that the preschool festival can have their own showcase at the Bliss, just like the other two, because some wonderful performances come out at that festival, and when we sit down and we look at it, we say, but what happens to it afterwards? Nobody sees it. So now we've decided to go one step further and have their national showcase at the Bliss come next year too. All right, and we are working under the theme, something to what Nadira said. The theme this year is Display Our Talents, Brighten the World. And that's the theme for the Preschool Festival of Arts.
And we know, obviously, very key to being on stage for the festival is the expression portion. And you know, I think we don't really talk about why it's important that children be expressive. And you spoke about the stimulating aspect, and I completely get that. You have people who are just far more engaging than others. You know, it doesn't mean they're bad people, bad character. They're great people, but just some people will draw you in easier. But I want to bring it back to the storytelling, story reading, because, you know, Leroy, bless your heart, but I know a lot of parents out there saying, I'm not creative enough to think up stories, or I don't believe that I am. Is story reading still a viable option, an expressive reading of whatever story I can find? Is that a start?
Most naturally. And just to add to what you said, a lot of people believe that, well, if I can't read myself, then I won't be able to assist my child. And that's totally opposite, because if you are not able to read the words, if you're doing the story reading aspect of it, you can basically use the pictures to tell your own story. And that is even more, because you eventually, when you do that story with your child will realize, okay, mommy or daddy isn't really reading the words, so I can add to the story. And it makes it even more interesting, even more a part of family activity that happens on a daily basis. And we don't want people to believe you have to go out and buy all the fancy books that are wrong. You can use simple, basic things to do storytelling. Actually, you don't even need to have a story in front of you per se. And I think that's one of the things that as Belizeans we're losing along the way. When I was growing up, you would always hear all the Tatado Hende stories and so forth, which caught our attention. So that would be an excellent, and those are, and so those would actually be excellent starters to do with our children in terms of bringing back the culture, which links right back to the expressive arts component of it.
And not only that, the storytelling thing is a part of our tradition. It's called a part of our culture. It's called the oral tradition. In days gone by, that is how traditions and customs and so on were handed down from one generation to another.
And there are many children in Belize right now who do not. Actually, there was a couple who does animation who just documented some of the Tatado Hende stories, but when I went home and asked some of the children in my family if they knew who, they don't. And that used to be my #1 villain as a child. I was scared of Tata Duende.
Tata Duende played a role even in discipline.
Yeah.
Because the parents would tell you if you disobey men, go out late at night, Tata Duende and carry you to the bush. So it played a role also.
Or why you shouldn't wonder because La Llorona is out there.
Out there, you see. And there is a book around, that parents and teachers can buy and educate themselves on those characters.
Yeah.
There's a book called Characters and Caricatures of Belizean Folklore.
I remember that one. Now, to sum it all up, obviously, we've said a lot of reasons as to why and different ways that people can, but this particular month is being celebrated. What are the activities that are currently going to happen?
Just before I answer your question, Marlene, we missed the entire theme for Child Stimulation Month. We're here talking and we missed that. But the theme for Child Stimulation Month is Learn Early, Learn for Life, which is very fitting in what we're trying to achieve as a ministry. If that foundation is laid and that solid foundation is laid, that transcends into what you will become for life. In regards to activities that we're going to do in the month of March, and it is not only what is happening in the Belize district, but activities of this nature will be happening throughout the entire country. Festival of Arts, as one, is a countrywide thing. In each district, they have designated dates that they are going to be doing their Festival of Arts. So that's one activity. We have the Expo, an Early Childhood Expo that will be coming up on the 27th of March, where we're encouraging the public at large to go out and see what is it that we do at the preschool centers in Belize. You will then get to see the different learning areas being displayed and how you as a parent can engage your children. Some of these same activities that will be showcased out there, how you could take it back home and you can use these activities. We have in Cayo, they're going to have an expo as well, Cayo and Toledo. So we're going to be doing all of these activities, like I said, countrywide, and we're going to be focusing on why all of this stimulation is important and how parents can come on board in all of this.
What's important to note as well is that a lot of time when we say Child Stimulation Month, we tend to want to keep it just inside the preschool. This is an opportunity for parents to come in and do some activities. We have community workers coming in, like I know some of the schools normally invite people to come and do storytelling, take them out. Some of the schools would go out to the different businesses like the fire station, wherever. So it's an actual opportunity where our students or babies are getting to go out and see what is in the outside world, as well as we invite those from outside to come in and see what's going on at a preschool. So then if you have a, and I'm sure that some of the preschools also welcome those who are maybe would possibly come into their preschool. So you may not have a child inside the preschool right now, but it gives you an opportunity to go in and see, okay, it's not all just play as I had imagined it to be, but it's more structured. And we must realize that when we look at a preschool, we are laying the foundation. And when we keep our children at home, we start off bright. The first week we're there with them, we're reading, we're doing stories, we're doing activities, and the truth is we lack off. We start dropping off after the second week, third week.
Then you realize they love a TV show, and the TV show after that, and the TV show after that.
Exactly, but when they're actually in the preschool center setting, it's more beneficial for them. That's why we are encouraging everybody worldwide to know that preschool is really essential and beneficial.
One final question. How do you choose a preschool for your child? How do you ensure that you're not just sending them to a daycare or to one where a TV will be included as the babysitter? We
oftentimes tell parents when they're in that process of deciding which preschool I'm going to send my child, go in, sit down and be a part of the sessions that happen for the day, and not just only go to the school that you hear, okay, send your child to that one, but visit all possible centers that you would want. Sit down and be a child for the day and see, okay, how will my child transition from home into the setting? If you go to a center and you as the mother or the father go in and that doesn't go off, then you say, okay, I need to go and I need to look somewhere else. It's what you feel comfortable with, because at the end of the day, they're leaving your safety niche at home and making that transition to go into another safety place where you will have confidence in saying, okay, my child will be well taken care of, and when I get them back, there won't be that big of a disparity with what the child left and the child will come back to. So it's not that there's no best preschool or there's the one excellent preschool in Belize, but it's
what works best for you.
What works best for you and what you want for your child.
Yeah.
Okay, you asked me to put these up here.
Yes, of course. We have some of the
it's
artwork.
Another stimulation. It's another level of stimulation that I just brought to briefly look at this morning, in the sense that when you look at stimulation at a bond level, one of the things we have to stimulate and sensitize children about is their environment. And what we are pushing in the art, particularly this year, is sensitizing children to keeping their environment clean. And I have an art teacher, Mr. Dion Williams, who is specialized in that, where he takes this guarded material and turns it into art. This is not for preschool level. I forgot to bring the ones for preschool.
It's good to see. These are some very talented
These
babies.
ones are for more upper school. And but that one that you have in your hand is made from the toilet paper roll and newspaper. That's all. This one is made from discarded water bottle and the toilet and the newspaper too. So at the same time as being creative, it's also being cost effective. Really sorry I forgot to bring some of the ones
and environmentally friendly
from
a young age as well. And you know, at that age, once teacher says it's the right thing to do, it's the right thing to do.
So that is a way of helping them to keep their environment clean and at the same time be very creative. And just the Festival of Arts, since that's my baby.
Yeah.
The festival starts next week, Monday, with the opening sermon at the Bliss, 9 o'clock next Monday, and after that, 6:30 every evening, there are performances at the Bliss up until Friday night. Saturday morning is for rural schools. It starts at 10. We're asking a very small fee to help defray the cost, $3 and $2, and it will be very exciting. So make sure you come out to the Festival of Arts.
Well, thank you all very much for joining us, and this has been very fun. And we hope that parents have been able to have a better understanding as to why child stimulation and early childhood education is so important. Thank you.
Thank you too for having us.
We're going to go ahead and take a break, and when we come back, we'll be talking about Reef Week activities, so stay tuned.